So, welcome everybody. Sorry, we're just facing some technical problems. It's the first time that it occurs, but sometimes it arrives. So sorry. Don't forget to close your mic.
Let it stabilize.
I think that it's a necessity if you want to listen very well and carefully to our guest. So first of all, I would like to thank you for being present for this new edition of our series concerning Catholic identities of our Catholic higher education institutions. The last three webinars present, in fact, a similarity. In September, we discussed about our universities in Japan, and it was very interesting to understand the very specific cultural context that our universities are facing there. In October, and I see him on the screen, we have the pleasure to welcome Taras Dobko. And Taras explained us what was the specific cultural and also political context in Ukraine and how his universities evolves in such a context. And today we will discuss about India. And so, as you can see, in these three countries, in fact, Catholic people are not a majority. They constitute a minority, and they live in a cultural context where Catholicism is not the religion of the majority of people. So today we have the pleasure to welcome our colleague, Dr. Ordetta Mendoza, who is a member of our International Scientific Council, but Ordetta is a coordinator of programs of Xavier Board of Higher Education in India, which is a very famous organization which federates Catholic universities and colleges in India. Prior to this position, Dr. Mendoza served as a faculty member at Stella Maris College. It is at the east of India, and it is a very famous and renowned college in India and also elsewhere. Stella Maris is in Chennai. And Dr. Mendoza also served, and she also held the position of chairperson of the postgraduate department of Bioinformatics. You have her very rich curriculum vitae in this in the invitation. So Dr. Mendoza will introduce the discussion. She will present, in fact, the Catholic higher education institutions in India. Perhaps I think, Ordetta, that you will also explain the work of the Xavier Board. So thank you very much for being with us. A warm thank you for being with us. I leave you the floor, knowing that for the attendees, if you have some questions during Ordetta's speech, you can write in the chat, and of course, after her speech, you will be able to discuss directly with her. So thank you very much, Ordetta. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. So good evening and a hello to all my participants for this webinar. I wish some of you good morning and some of you good afternoon. It is 7:30, past 7:30 p.m. in India, so I would say good evening to all the Indian participants. And I thank you for giving your time to be with me this evening. At the outset, I would like to place on record my grateful thanks to Professor Isabelle Gil-Capello, President of FIUC, Professor Francois Mabi, Secretary General FIUC, and Professor Monsieur Loic Roche, Head of Communication and Strategy and Head of Training Department, FIUC, for providing the opportunity to speak on the Catholic identity in the cultural context of universities and colleges in India. I will speak for about maybe 40-45 minutes, and then we will have a question and answer session. I will explain to some of you who are not Indian. Some of the terms may not be very familiar, but I will endeavor to explain it to you as we go. In order to enter into the depth of the topic, I think one needs to have at least a bird's eye view of the diversity of the cultural context of the subcontinent of India. It makes it indeed hard when one realizes the ethnic diversity, religious plurality, and multiplicity of Indian demography. Therefore, I have tried to divide my lecture into several sections. At first, I will give you a background of India in terms of its socio-religious ethnic demography, followed by an insight into the origin of Christianity in India. Then a peek into the education system which existed in ancient India, the emergence of higher education institutions in colonial and independent India, the Catholic identity as envisaged by Catholic higher education institutions in our country, and the work done by Xavier Board of Higher Education India, and finally the way forward, how I see it, in order to make alive our Catholic identity in the cultural context of universities and colleges in India. So I begin with telling you about some of the demographics. India is one of the largest, most highly diversified economies in the world, but due to its large population in terms of income and gross national product, GNP per capita, there is a large section of the population that lives below the poverty line. In 2009-10, it was about 354 million people, which is 29.6% of the population. And in 2011-12, it was 269 million, which is 21.9% of the population. Now, in terms of religious demography, the largest religious group are the Hindus, having an adherence of 80.5%, Islam 13.4%, Christianity 2.4%, which is rather very small, followed by Sikhism at 1.9%, Buddhism at 0.8%, Jainism at 0.4%, and around 6 million people have reported other religions and faiths, including tribal religions, which is different from the 6 main religions. Now, the National Statistical Commission surveyed to be about 77.7% in 2000 of literacy. Okay, they surveyed the literacy rate, which is about 77.7% in 2017-18, of which 84.7 was male and 70.3 was female. Much of the progress, especially in higher education and scientific research, has increased steadily over the past decade, reaching a gross enrollment ratio in education of 26.3% in 2019. The government envisaged about 30% in 2020. We are yet to reach that number. With the Jains, the people of the Jain religion having the highest number of literate people, they have 94%, followed by Christians at 80%, and the Muslim below the national average. Now in India, we have 3 major ethnic groups: the Indo-Aryan, the Mongoloid, and the Dravidians, mainly in the south. And India is the 4th highest country with respect to number of languages spoken, 444 plus languages and dialects. It is worse than the Tower of Babel. There are 22 official languages recognized by the Constitution of India, and English is the most extant language, which is most frequently used. Many of our official documents are still in English. Coming to the origin of Christianity in India, Christianity in India dates to the Apostolic Age. Many of you would know St. Thomas, one of the 12 apostles of Christ and a Jew by birth, visited India around 52 AD. He came in search of Jews settled in India. He landed at Bangalore on the southwest coast and traversed parts of South India, which is today the state of Kerala. He moved to the Coromandel coast, which is on the east, where he converted many high caste people to Christianity. He was martyred in St. Thomas Mount and later buried in Mylapore, which is in present-day Chennai, where I stay and from where I work, which is in the state of Tamil Nadu, and this was in 72 AD. We have the Santom Cathedral, which had the remains of St. Thomas there, and there is a shrine over the burial site. There is a general scholarly consensus that Christian communities were firmly established in the Malabar coast of Kerala way back in the 6th century AD, and these were known as the Syrian Christians of the Church of the East in India. Now, as a result of this, Malankara Nazarenes, that is the Thomasine, we call it Thomasine Christians, have a unique Syro-Malabarese culture, which includes Christianized Jewish elements. Now, following the discovery of the Cape route by the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama in 1498, many Western Christians, mainly secular and Franciscan priests, came to India and began preaching in places like Goa, Daman, and Diu, Bombay, etc. Some of the notable Jesuit missionaries who came after Vasco da Gama and who contributed to the expansion of Christianity were St. Francis Xavier. He was a Navarrese of Spanish origin. St. John the Vito, Portuguese. Roberto di Nobili and Constantine Beschi, who were Italian. They followed their own methods to convert the people into Catholicism. Now, with the formation of the Jesuit Madurai missionary in 1800s, Christianity began to spread in the interior parts of South India. We will now take a look at the education institutions in ancient India. The history of education in ancient India is actually very fascinating. If we go back in time, India is believed to have had a functioning system of higher education as early as 1000 BC. Unlike the present-day universities, these ancient learning centers were primarily concerned with dispersing Vedic education. Takshashila, now that this place is in modern-day Pakistan, was the earliest recorded center of higher education in learning in India from possibly the 8th century BC, but this is debatable whether it could be regarded as a university or not in the modern sense. Another one is Nalanda, which was a renowned Buddhist monastery and university in ancient Magadha. Now, Magadha is the modern day state of Bihar in India and somewhere in central India. It was considered by historians to be the world's very first residential university and among the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. It operated from 427 to 1197 Common Era CE. It taught 6 major Buddhist schools and philosophies such as Yogacara, which is what we call the practice of yoga, the Hindu Vedas, which are the religious books of the Hindus, and 6 philosophies, as well as subjects such as grammar, medicine, logic, and mathematics. The university was also a major source of the 657 Sanskrit texts, which are carried by pilgrim Yuanzhang, and the 400 Sanskrit texts carried by Yi Jing to China in the 7th century. And this influenced the East Asian Buddhism there. All subjects were taught in what is known as the Aryano-Pali language, which is an Indo-Aryan liturgical language. They use palm leaves and barks of trees for writing. Today, actually, Nalanda is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Beyond this, indigenous education was imparted at home in temples and places known as patshalas, tolls, chatpadis, and gurukuls. Now, many institutions were meant only, at that time, were meant only for the upper caste, the priestly class, the Brahmins. The Kshatriyas, the warrior class, and the Vaisyas or business class. This is a class system that existed in India, were also allowed to be educated. And they had indigenous education more than going into the institutions. The Shudras were the lower class were ostracized from temples. The education system and other places considered sacred for the elite. The lower caste were relegated to doing work such as scavenging, burying the dead, and other menial chores. They were never given an education. Now, the Gurukul system, which existed in those days, still exists today in many places, especially for imparting education in the field of performing arts. Thus, in India, we had both formal and informal methods of education. The beginning of Western education began in colonial India. So the modern Indian education system finds its roots in colonial legacy. The British government used the university system as a tool of cultural colonization. Christian missionaries campaigned for reforms in the social evils of Hinduism, such as sati, which is widow immolation, self-immolation when the husband died, and female infanticide. And thus they introduced the Western educational system in India. The British perceived education, both in schools and colleges, as a means for knowledge, character formation, cultural advancement, and empowerment of the disadvantaged sections of the society. Colonial efforts in higher education were carried out initially through the East India Company, followed by the British Parliament, and later under direct British rule. The first institution of higher learning set up by the British East India Company was in Calcutta, was the Calcutta Madrasa in 1781. This was followed by the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784, the Banaras Sanskrit College in 1791, and Fort William College in 1800. Then with the Charter Act of 1813, the British Parliament officially declared Indian education as one of the duties of the state. The same act also removed restrictions on missionary work in British India, thus leading to the establishment of the first Jesuit college, St. Xavier's College in Calcutta, which today called Kolkata, in 1816. And this was followed by the establishment of the Evangelist Serampore College in 1818. Further to this, Thomas Babington Macaulay's famously controversial Minute on Education in 1835 reflected the growing support of a Western approach to knowledge over an Oriental one. In 1837, 4 French Jesuit priests set foot in Pondicherry and decided on setting up an education institution. Thus, in September of 1844, Father Oribe, he's a Jesuit, started St. Joseph Collegium, which means high school or higher education, with 1 pupil in a small hut at the southern extremity of the town of Nagapatnam, which is still in South India. It's a big pilgrimage center today. The following year, the number of students rose to 38. A couple of years later, St. Joseph's College was shifted to Tiruchirappalli as to ensure more students enrolled and availed of a university education. Soon after, in 1857, the first 3 official universities were started in Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, which is today Chennai. I like to say over here that we have Catholic institutions and other colleges which actually existed before the first universities were set up in India. Now, these universities, the 3 universities of Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, which is Chennai today, were modeled after the University of London and focused on English and humanities. So the British control of the Indian education system, this continued until the Government of India Act of 1935 that transferred more power to the provincial politicians and began the Indianization of education. So when India gained independence in 1947, the nation had a total of about 2,41,369 students registered across 20 universities and 496 colleges. In 1498, the Indian government established the University Education Commission to oversee the growth and the improvement of higher education. In the 1960s and 70s, the government increased its efforts to support higher education by not only setting up state-funded universities and colleges, but also providing financial assistance to private institutions, resulting in the creation of private aided, or what is also known as grant and aid institutions. Towards the beginning of the 19th century, several Catholic colleges were set up by various religious congregations. The Catholic Church, and actually before 1947, before India became independent, we had about 20 Catholic colleges already. The Catholic, run by various congregations, including the Loreto College, Calcutta, Stella Maris College, Chennai, which was started on 15th August 1947, the day India got independence. The Catholic Church, aware of the importance of education for national development and industrial growth, invested in schools and colleges wherever the church was established. It considered education as the best means of pastoral ministry, as Catholic values could be implanted in young minds. But over a period of time, education became more and more regimented, making it today a state subject. Currently, we have over 600 Catholic colleges, 12 universities and medical colleges, 25 management institutions, and over 300 professional and engineering institutions, including B.Ed, which constitutes about 1% of the total number of higher education institutions across the length and breadth of the country. We are only about 1% Catholic institution across length and breadth of the country, because there are about 60,000 institutions so far. Almost all of these Catholic institutions are run by religious congregations, while some are by the dioceses. Some of the major congregations which run institutions are the Jesuits, who have over 60 colleges and universities, the Salesians, who have over 30 plus institutions, the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate, which have 30 plus institutions, plus one of the biggest university, the Dean University, the Christ University, situated in Bangalore. The Catholic universities and colleges in India are all private institutions, and they fall under one of the two categories, aided and unaided. When I say aided, that those that are funded by the government, and unaided, those that are not. And these unaided institutions are also known as self-financing institutions. They are wholly managed and financially supported by the religious congregation and by way of fees, which is collected from the students. Now, in many cases, the private aided colleges also offer some undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs, which are not supported by the government. And in these cases, the faculty members and all those associated with such programs of study are neither paid by the government, nor are they eligible for any benefits such as pension, etc. Each institution is a faith community, excuse me, in pursuit of a common project. The nature of that community is both religious and academic, and the balance between the two commitments is both delicate and precarious. If the institution becomes wholly religious, it will lose its academic standing. If it becomes wholly academic, it will no longer be considered a minority institution. And minority institutions are those which are, I will explain this a little later. So many Catholic colleges were once, and some still are, elitist centers of learning, meant only for the upper classes and the rich. Along the way, many of them also fell prey to the common trend of commercialization of higher education. However, the Catholic Church's emphasis on social justice and option for the poor in the 1970s motivated several of the Catholic institutions to change their policies in favor of the less privileged. And actually, this was started by the Jesuits. In 2007, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, the CBCI, drew up a policy in order to direct the Catholic colleges to shift the focus of education, adhering to the teachings of Jesus, which is service in terms of care for Catholic students, especially the poor and the marginalized, faith formation in secular settings, and social concern and its resultant social transformation. Today, Catholic universities and colleges maintain the same academic caliber and educational merit as of similarly accredited higher education institutions in the country. In fact, many of our Catholic colleges rank in the first 100 out of about 60,000 colleges on the national institutional ranking framework in the country. The institutions maintain their Catholic identity in spite of the high cultural diversity of their stakeholders, ranging from the faculty admitting students of different socio-economic groups, ethnicities, and religions. The Christian institutions are guaranteed their minority rights by Articles 29 and 30 enshrined in the Constitution of India, thus granting the institutions constitutional or legislative protection. Some of the rights of the institution is to administer their institutions as they deem fit and admit up to a minimum of 50% of students from their minority community. So if the Catholics run a college or Christians run a college, then up to 50% of student intake, who are students are enrolled each academic year, can be from their own minority community, they can be Catholic. If it's a Muslim college, same thing for Muslims. And if it's a Jain college, then 50% students can be from the Jain community. So minority communities in India include both religious and linguistic minorities. The Christians, the Muslims, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Jains, the Zoroastrians, okay, they're all minority communities. Muslims are the largest minority community, followed by the Christians and the Sikhs. Catholic colleges are attentive to the cultural differences of the various religious, socio-economic groups in the country, and they have created a multicultural, pluralistic ambience in their institutions. Almost all of them ensure that the Catholic identity is not diluted, both in terms of discipleship and citizenship. In the Catholic institutions, Catholic ideals, attitudes, and principles penetrate institutional activities in accordance with the proper nature and autonomy of these activities. Thus, being both a university or college and being Catholic, they try to be both a community of scholars representing various branches of human knowledge and an academic institution in which Catholicism is vitally present and operative. There are several areas where Catholic identity of the institution is emphasized through policies, activities, and programs, which are held exclusively for Catholic faculty, non-academic staff, and students, and also for those of other faiths who choose to participate in them. Although it's exclusive for Catholics, we also allow others to participate if they wish to. Some of the policies and activities of our Catholic institutions are, first and foremost, we hiring or preference is given to Catholic faculty in most of the Catholic colleges, whenever and wherever possible, provided the applicants have the aptitude for teaching, learning, and research, and also the necessary prescribed qualifications. Hiring of Catholic non-academic faculty members, non-academic staff, provided they also have the qualifications and skills required. Sometimes some of these non-academic staff are hired for non-skilled jobs based on their economic status and on compassionate grounds or grounds of gender equity. Because now more and more we are into having more female on campuses rather than restricted only to the male population. Even in non-co-ed colleges. I would like to say here, many of our Catholic institutions are only for women and there are only for boys. There were the institutions, now all the men's colleges admit women, but I think many of the women's colleges do not admit men, but we have many of our institutions which are either only for girls or only for boys. That scenario is changing today. Admission of Catholic students is based on merit in seats which come under what is called as the open category. Now, India, since 1947, we had the caste system, but after 1947, this caste system was abolished, and the government brought in this policy of what is known as open category, where anyone can apply for the seats under this category. A certain percentage of the seats are, in each program is allotted for open category, a small amount, and then we have what's called as the reservation policy for admission into colleges and universities, where seats in each program are earmarked for those belong to what we call as the scheduled class and the scheduled tribes. And that is the only category that the government recognizes today, scheduled class and scheduled tribes for admissions. Okay, now this is a very peculiar situation in India. And if anyone wants further explanation, I can do this at the end of the talk. The next is admission of Catholic students up to, as I said earlier, up to 50% of the sanctioned number of seats for a particular program. So because most of our colleges are affiliating colleges, we have two types of colleges, affiliating colleges and autonomous colleges. Both types of colleges, affiliated and autonomous college, this follows the British system of education where you have colleges affiliated to university. So most of our colleges are affiliated to university, including autonomous colleges, although the autonomous status is only for academic freedom in terms of their syllabi, curriculum, etc. Otherwise, the university gives a degree for the students, irrespective of whether the college is an affiliated college or a autonomous college. So we have colleges where up to 50% of the sanctioned number of seats for a particular program. The sanctioned number of seats, the number of seats for a particular program comes from the university. The institution cannot decide if they want to have 80 students in a class or 70 students in a class. That sanctioned number is given by the university, and that may vary from institution to institution, from university to university. So up to 50% of the sanctioned number of seats can be for the Catholics, is actually for the Catholics, and this also includes seats on a merit cum means basis. Now, the institutions provide scholarships for or fee waiver, free education, primarily for economically weak and marginalized Catholic students. Students of other faiths are also not discriminated against. They also receive, if they are in need of fellowship or scholarship, the Catholic institution also, entertains students of other faiths for scholarship, and they're not discriminated against. Then the colleges, many of the colleges provide residential accommodation for poor Catholic students who need it, and wherever possible. Catholic doctrine classes are held for Catholic students as being part of the curriculum. So I think most of the institutions have what we call as Catholic doctrine classes for our Catholic students right from the year of entry till the exit. Retreats are organized every year for Catholic faculty and students by the Catholic colleges. Eucharistic celebrations for important occasions are held on campus. Feast days on the feast days of patron saints, Founders Day, inauguration of an academic year, Thanksgiving Mass at the end of an academic year. Other days such as first Fridays of the month, on Ash Wednesday. The colleges also hold Way of the Cross or Stations of the Cross is held in many institutions during the month of Lent. Then there is celebration of Christmas, the Feast of the Assumption of Our Lady, Birthday of Our Lady, is held in most Catholic colleges, usually in which all faculty members, non-academic staff and students are free to participate. Then competitions and other activities are held by the campus ministry in Catholic colleges, which includes offering Bible study classes and classes for preparation for receiving sacraments. Church teachings, Catechism of the Catholic Church is taught, especially in areas relating to marriage, etc. Prayer at the beginning of meetings. Most of our programs are get-togethers, examinations, other celebration on campus, for example, International Women's Day, World Human Rights Day, etc. And meetings, usually we begin with a prayer, which is usually led by, it can be non-denominational prayer, sometimes when we are reading from the Bible with some reflection. Then all classes, usually in all Catholic colleges, every classroom has got a crucifix. And also, I think all our Catholic colleges have a chapel or a prayer room where all are welcome, irrespective to pray, irrespective of caste or creed. Now, apart from this, most of the Catholic colleges have a functional unit of organizations such as the All India Catholic Universities Federation, or the ICUF, which is run by the Jesuits, and Jesus Youth, which is an international Catholic youth organization with papal approval associated with spreading the word of God. Many of the colleges in the south actually have got, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, have got this organization, students affiliated to this organization, Jesus Youth, also in the northeast. Now, these associations of spiritual and apostolic nature, which have been developed specifically for students, is of great assistance actually in developing the pastoral aspects of the individual's life. I will talk something about Xavier Board now. Just to give you an idea of what Xavier Board is and what we do. Xavier Board was established in 1951 when a group of Catholic educationists felt the need for an organization that would federate all the Catholic institutions in the country. This was approved by the Catholic Bishops' Conference in India, and Xavier Board today has over 350 member colleges, of which 215 are life member colleges. One of the main activities of Xavier Board over the last several years has been on conducting orientation programs for newly appointed principals, or what we call presidents of Catholic colleges and or vice chancellors, as well as leadership training programs for principals. And when I say principal, I refer to presidents of institutions, managers or rectors of Catholic colleges. Now, Xavier Board was fortunate to have had the opportunity of conducting one such program, a masterclass for rectors and principals of universities and colleges in India, a leadership program which is fully supported by FIUC in February, March this year, and for which Xavier Board and all the participants are grateful. I'd like to place on record our thanks once again for this program, which was organized, funded by FIUC, and the resource person was Madame Edith Lassiat. It was a wonderful program. I think all the participants really enjoyed it and learned from it. Then some of the other programs of Xavier Board include, we hold national level camps for Catholic students on gospel themes and values. These camps are held for colleges in the northern part of India and maybe southern part of India, 2 regions or 3 regions together. Xavier Board has got 8 regions. India has been broken up into, divided into 8 regions for Xavier Board. And 1 or 2 regions get together every year and organize national level camps for students, Catholic students. Then seminars, lectures on various topics, themes and topics relevant to the functioning of Catholic college universities, including what is today, we have the new education policy 2020 of the central government. And this has some far-reaching effects on the higher education system in the country and in the continuing existence of many of the new small Catholic colleges. And so we've had seminars on this to discuss the pros and cons of it. Xavier Board has been instrumental in getting the Catholic College to discuss this. For the last 4 years, actually, Xavier Board has also been conducting what is known as the administrative and academic audits of colleges, which enables the institution to evaluate its functioning, their policies and practices. Now, Xavier Board hopes to become a full-fledged administrative and academic auditing agency in the country in the next few years. Another program that Xavier would conduct is training of faculty in preparation for the assessment and accreditation of the institution by what is called as the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, an arm of the University Grants Commission of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. Consultancy services are also extended to Catholic colleges and other institutions, not just Catholic, also non-Catholic institutions, to help review their what is known as the self-study reports before the institution goes in for accreditation by this National Assessment and Accreditation Council. So consultancy services are provided for our institutions. Xavier Board also has conducted a series of online training programs to help institutions, especially faculty members, cope with the stupendous task of transiting from offline to online mode of teaching, learning, and evaluation at the start of the pandemic, COVID-19 in March of 2000. From April to June, we conducted these programs, which included implementation of the learning management systems in colleges. So this is some of the work that Xavier Board does. They have some more programs in the pipeline, and I think maybe in a few weeks or months, it will be finalized. So way forward for Catholic colleges. The strength of the Catholic Church in India is its education, social work, and healthcare system, with thousands of schools, colleges. Colleges can be for liberal arts, sciences, engineering, medical, nursing, and management. The hospitals and nursing homes, the vocational education centers, creches, old age homes, hospices, and other institutions. This is the strength of the Catholic Church in India. We are pioneers in most of these areas, along with the other Christian denominations. Many of our colleges have been, as I said earlier, older than the oldest universities in the country. Now, most of these institutions are concentrated in the southern part of the country, in large cities and bigger towns. Many congregations also, work among the tribals and the Dalits in remote parts of the country. More recently, several institutions of higher education have been started in villages and remote locations, especially in some of the northeastern states. Actually, I'm very happy. I have traveled to many of them, and it's wonderful to see institutions coming up in these states. They need help actually, but they are so remotely located. Traveling to them, it's a really arduous journey. But congratulations to all the institutions which have started in the Northeast. Apart from a few of them which are already existing, St. Edmund's College, St. Mary's College, St. Anthony's College, Shillong. These are older institutions, some of them as about 100 years old, but the newer institutions are hardly 4, 5, 6 years old. In order to make our Catholic institution more vibrant, alive, and to strengthen the Catholic ethos of the institution, here are some suggestions that I make, which can help our Catholic institutions in the long run. One is to foster greater collaboration between dioceses and religious congregations, between the church and institutions. And I quote here from St. Pope John Paul II's encyclical Ex Corde Ecclesiae. Institutions have a relationship, open quote, institutions have a relationship to the church that is essential to its institutional identity. As such, it participates most directly in the life of the local church in which it is situated. At the same time, because it is an academic institution and therefore a part of the international community of scholarship and inquiry, each institution participates in and contributes to the life and the mission of the universal church. Close quotation. Next one is, religious congregation dedicated to the apostolate of higher education should assist the institutions in the renewal of their commitment by continuing to prepare religious men and women who can positively contribute to the mission of a Catholic university or college. I think many of you know that nowadays there's a dearth of vocations in the country, vocations to religious congregations, and many are having difficulty in finding replacements to head the institutions. And some of our institutions have actually handed over to lay persons, and actually they're doing very well. Lay collaboration is welcome, but it's also good to have some of the religious, in their own institutions. Congregations which have started new colleges should draw upon the expertise of older, well-established institutions in terms of governance and management of new institutions. Have some collaborations with the old institutions. Presidents and principals and administrators of Catholic colleges should promote the constant growth of the institution and its community through a leadership of service. the colleges should encourage the non-academic staff, because the dedication and witness of the non-academic staff are vital for the identity and the life of the institution. Institutions should invest in the development of competency levels of faculty members in the colleges and universities. The next is nationally accredited ranked rich institutions should engage with newly set up institutions by necessarily sharing resources, both infrastructural and human resources. There are many institutions that are upcoming, but they need help from maybe our sister institutions or our parent institutions. And that would be very welcome if some of our institutions can network together. Xavier Board is moving in that direction. Catholic student exchange programs should be fostered, especially between the North and South states. Place greater importance on hiring Catholic faculty into tenured positions by calling for application across the country. I know many institutions in the North and some remote places, they are unable to get Catholic faculty. Okay, so it would be nice that even through Xavier Board, if this can be done, applications can be called from across the country, and institutions must lay emphasis on hiring Catholic faculty into tenured positions. Enhancing lay collaboration, following the words of Pope St. John Paul II in his encyclical, the same Excorde Ecclesiae. He says, lay people have found in university activities a means by which they too could exercise an important apostolic role in the church. And in most Catholic universities today, the academic community is largely composed of laity in increasing numbers. Laymen and women are assuming important functions and responsibilities for the direction of these institutions. These lay Catholics are responding to the church's call to be present as signs of courage and intellectual creativity in the privileged places of culture, that is, the world of education, school and university, by which we can spread the good news, close quotation. The next one I would emphasize on is colleges to foster an atmosphere of inclusiveness, because most of our Catholic higher education institutions have men and women who profess other faiths, given India's social, as I said earlier, India's socio-religious demography, offer their training and experience, because many of these, non-Catholic faculty members, etc., offer their training and experience in furthering the various academic disciplines or other university tasks. So we have to foster an atmosphere of inclusiveness. They must feel that they are wanted in our institutions. Catholic university and colleges should help faculty members improve their academic competence levels. Catholic institutions must invest in building resources to conduct what I call as green audit, because as per the government of the Ministry of HRD through the National Assessment Accreditation Council, they are requesting colleges to conduct green audit to see how compliant are the colleges with green initiatives of the government, especially, for example, in planting trees in the locality, in communities, in banning plastics, etc. So that institutions, and if institutions are able to conduct a green audit, right, the Catholic institutions must invest in building resources to conduct a green audit for colleges, so that the institutions can respond to the urgent need of environmental protection and conservation with good practices that will reach the communities they serve. I think after COP26, I think all of us have been geared into full swing into, looking at the environment and sustainability. So it's good for our Catholic institutions to relook at some of this and invest in greening and in protection and conservation of the environment, and also taking a cue from Holy Father's encyclical Laudato Si. Catholic faculty members are called to be witnesses and educators of authentic Christian life, to attain integration between faith and life, between professional competence and Christian wisdom. Institutions should help faculty members to be inspired by academic ideals and by the principles of an authentically human life. Now I have one or two more points. Given the wide cultural differences among students in Catholic college universities, students should be challenged to pursue an education that combines excellence in humanistic and cultural development with specialized professional training. Catholic students should be facilitated to search for truth and for meaning throughout their lives, to deepen a Christian way of life that is authentic, realize the responsibility of their professional life, the enthusiasm of being the trained leaders of tomorrow, and above all, being witnesses to Christ in whatever place they may exercise their profession. And this is the duty of Catholic institutions, to encourage students and challenge them. And the last of all my points, which is the way forward, I speak about to promote spiritual education in institutions. There is a growing need for something more, to go beyond than the mere utilitarian approach to education. Catholic institutions must realize that education has a wider remit that should include spiritual development of the young persons in their care. Spiritual education makes a person serene, open-minded, self-restrained, disciplined, and willing to accept plurality of cultures, respect individual rights, and be compassionate to the disadvantaged. This is the soul of spiritual education. Teaching about religions can lead to harmony in society only when it is built on the foundation of true human spirituality. Without first promoting a spirituality that unites peoples, education can lead to sectarianism and consequent communal disharmony. And this is especially so in the present socio-political climate in India and in the world, a climate that tends to polarize people. Young people, on the contrary, are hungry for that something more in education, the truly spiritual, a profound sense of within, mysticism, and true religious commitment that supports unity in society and leads to peace, justice, and harmony. I will conclude now just to say that in a country like India that's strongly polarized, the strongest message of Catholic higher education institution in India should be one of leading by example. If the leadership in Catholic universities and colleges and the policies taken by them are reflective of our Catholic faith, they are transparent and well constructed, it would reiterate our commitment to the cause of Catholic higher education. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Ordetta, for this so interesting lecture. I think that all the attendees were very interesting in understanding better the great diversity of your country. You underline the ethnic, religious, social diversity. You mentioned so many languages and dialects that you have in India. Listening to you, I was thinking that in fact, your Xavier board is facing for parts of them challenges that we have at IFCU, because we have to we face so great diversity among our universities, and for a part it is the same challenge, but of course for you it is a challenge that is focused on India issues. Thank you very much for mentioning also the heritage of some congregations, of course Jesuit congregation, but also Salesian and some other. I think that you have mentioned some challenges which are shared by many universities in the world. What you have said about the precocious balance between religious identity and academic identity, both in college and university, is a subject that is a very important subject for many universities. What you've said also about the evolution of the staff with lay people involved in your institutions, and of course also the atmosphere of inclusiveness that is needed today. And your final comment about leadership was very interesting. So thank you, Ordetta, for this lecture. I don't want to be too long.
You're welcome.
So I will leave the floor to the attendees. I guess that some of you would like to discuss with Ordetta, or if you prefer, you can write a comment or a question in the chat.
Yep. I have to confess, I am no big expert in this area. is through my readings and research that I have done that I'm able to speak about. And I'm working with Xavier board and having 30 years of experience in Stella Maris College. I draw from some of my experiences, but I will endeavor to, if you have any questions, to answer them.
Okay,
you can
thank
also
you,
put in the
Ordetta.
chat box.
May I please?
Yes, Sandra.
Yes, Sandra.
Hello.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ordetta, for your very lucid presentation. Congratulations. It was very interesting to listen to you from the beginning till the end. You've captured the essence of Catholic education and identity in India. I do hope you will publish this paper at some time so that we have access to it. Thank you very much, Ordetta.
Thank you,
I
Sandra.
just have a thought or just a few thoughts, and maybe you could add a little bit and throw more light onto that. Higher education institutions in India, right now, we are going through, two very major issues. One is the pandemic, and the other is the national education policy, right? So these two triggering factors, I'm wondering what will be our, future with this. One is the pandemic has really created an unprecedented situation for us, where all of us, higher education institutions have to quickly move into the hybrid model, right? That is using advanced
offline and online.
Using advanced technology. And I'm wondering how prepared we as institutions are going to be with access to this kind of hybrid technology, one. Two is, I'm wondering about the national education policy that we all have to quickly follow. And that is, the crisis here is the pandemic, we all jumped into it and able to manage. But when it came for the national education policy, we're thinking about it for so many years as to how we as Catholic institutions or Christian institutions are going to adapt or adopt the new policies from the roadmap that it is defining. And as you know, higher education institutions are going to become privatized and also going to be, we cater to a marginalized section of students. So how are we going to be, it's going to be less and less state dependent or state funded. How are we going to cope with this? So I just want to pick your brains, because right now we see that evidence just suggests that we're not prepared for hybrid learning, as well as, to be privatized or independent institutions. What would you suggest with your exposure for, different levels of Catholic institutions that you have seen? Just 2 or 3 suggestions as to how we can cope with these two things: hybrid learning, access to technology, and 2 is the adaptation of the new policies that the NEP is going to, literally, we have to take it. From next year, all of us are going to have the new policies, mainly privatization of higher education.
Thank you, Sandra, for all that you have said just now. Thank you so much. I am as blank as you are in some areas, but let me tell you, when it comes to the hybrid model, blended learning, what they're calling blended learning today, they want our institutions to go into blended learning. And yes, I would say more than 60% of our institutions are not prepared for this technologically. I just got a message from somebody from one of the institutions in the Northeast, which says they don't even have internet connectivity. The government is not looking at whether we have the connectivity, which is the basic necessity for implementing the blended online learning. They are just pushing their agenda of wanting to have this. It is going to be a stupendous task, like it was when the pandemic hit us, that we all just had to get into the online mode. Many colleges did struggle in the beginning, and that is why Xavier Board did conduct programs to help these institutions to carry on their classes, online classes. The colleges were able to do it, but I think the students suffered a lot. And that will be the same thing as the years go by, because as I told you, a lot of students come from the marginalized section of society. They do not have access to the internet. Some of them come into the institution, use the institution's internet facility for their online classes. Now, this is going to be a major challenge for us. I think the Catholic colleges have to get together and see how we can, walk over this and help the students to have access. Maybe I would say one way, I'm not looking at the college point of view, I'm looking at the student point of view. because they need to be helped. They do not even have laptops. Many of them do not even have a mobile phone. And to access their lectures was very difficult for them. Actually, one of the principals told me this evening, he said students have done very, very poorly in the examinations. And that is, it's reflective of them not having heard the lectures or whatever. Some of them even the teachers do not have access to internet. So we will have a problem, but as we have done in the past, I think we will rise to the occasion. And I think Catholic colleges, we need to network among ourselves. As I said, the richer, well-to-do institutions can lend a hand to the newer, smaller institutions to help them to get into this blended learning or hybrid mode of learning. The second question you asked me was the national education policy. We all know that this is not accepted by us. We have had protests. We have written to the UGC. Xavier board has held seminars and workshops and to discuss the NEP. And we have written to them, but there's only apply, no reply. So they do not worry about us. Some states like Tamil Nadu have rejected the NEP, but some states which are under the central government, which have this, some of the parties of the central government to rule the states, they are pushing for the NEP. I think Delhi is one thing because they are right under the central government's nose. The other one is Karnataka. I looked at it very differently because they are not in any way pushing for some of the things that they have spoken about. For example, the admission policy, they have not touched upon that as yet. And we are guaranteed our right of admitting students from the Catholic community, irrespective of whether we have the NEP or not. The second part of it is, it doesn't impinge upon our hiring of faculty. It doesn't impinge upon the kind of valuation classes that we give. In fact, if you look at the NEP, the curriculum framework gives some leeway for us to have additional courses, add-on courses, etc., in which we can, inculcate a Catholic education to our students. And it doesn't impinge upon the programs that we conduct our institution. All that the NEP is talking, I'm being very unbiased because I have gone through the NEP document. They only want us to follow a kind of a curriculum pattern, which will be helpful for students across the country. Today, if you look at our colleges, autonomous colleges, non-autonomous colleges, self-financing colleges, etc., it is becoming very difficult for a student to migrate from one institution to another institution during the course of a program. So if by chance a student quits a program after 1 year or 1.5 or 2 years, then the student cannot continue the same program in another institution. And that may be for reasons of, different reasons, to parents being migrating from one place to another, etc. So I think what the government is trying to do is to bring about a standardization in the curriculum across the institutions in India. And if you look at it from that manner, yes, but on the flip side of it, they are offering courses, programs like the westernized, like the US universities, where you can quit after community colleges, where you can quit after 1 year, get a certificate, after 2 years, you get a diploma, 3 years, you get a degree program, and 4 years, you get an honors program. But in the honors program, we may be hit because all students may not go into the honors program. So we will have definitely problems in handling the honors program in the 4th year, in terms of number of faculty, classrooms, our human resources, our infrastructural facilities, etc. But looking at it, I think we will, in the long run, have to abide by this NEP. It'd be good for us to sit back, take stock of what we have and see how we can go forward without being drawn into any kind of controversies with the government and with other agencies. So this answers your question. And I think Xavier board will help institutions who are going to NEP to implement the NEP if they need help. I had 2 or 3 questions in the chat box.
Yes, exactly.
I can see so many. Somebody wanted my paper for further reading. Yes, I will mail it to Xavier board, to Professor Mabi or to Loic, and you all can have it. Thank you. I think some of, I have one question on. Taras, I think, Doko. Thanks for the presentation. In the cultural context of today's India, what special value the Catholic university and colleges add toward the contemporary Indian higher education? And the second question was, what is appreciated most of all by, let me get this
By
down.
students, teachers, partners.
By students, yeah, teachers, partners, etc. I assume that given the incredible diversity of Indian society, the Catholic University is a unique platform for unity, dialogue, and encounter. Am I right? What is the major challenge of Catholic higher education today? Okay, I will take your first question.
A very simple question for you.
No, not simple. But let me tell you, our Catholic colleges are much appreciated. Students flock to our institutions. We have a difficult time wanting to find out who we need to admit and who we cannot admit. 99.9% of our colleges are filled to the brim. We do not have difficulty in filling up our seats. In fact, we take in more students than we are allowed. And then we get into trouble with the university. But the university will overlook it because sometimes they know that the number of students coming out of schools is much more higher than the number of seats available in institutions. And so sometimes they close their eyes to it. We may have to pay a little bit of fine to the student university or whatever, but they will close their eyes. So many of our colleges are sought after by the public, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the caste, whatever. They love to come to our colleges, and they also feel that they have the security and safety of the child in our institution. I think that's a big plus point for us. Most of our colleges are secure in terms of, the physical security of the student. So parents love to send their students to our colleges, even to our hostels where we had dormitories for students. Many of our colleges, hostels are much wanted. Students travel, come from different states. They travel across different states to get admission in well-known institutions. What is the special category? So in Indian higher education, we have been pioneers, and we continue to be pioneers because most of our colleges were, actually some of the Catholic Christian colleges were the first colleges to become autonomous. In Tamil Nadu, we had Loyola College, the Madras Christian College, the WCC, American College, the Protestant College, all which became autonomous. And we are some of the best colleges, as I said, the best colleges in the country. So we innovate, we are pioneers, and we have room for innovation. We are bold in taking steps to change, some of the things in our institutions. We are pioneers in starting new programs of study. For example, let me tell you about bioinformatics. We were the first college, Stella Maris was the first college to start bioinformatics in this country. So, and I'm proud of that. So we are pioneers in this thing of higher education, and we are appreciated by our teachers. Many of the non-Catholic teachers love to come and teach in our institutions because they are given much academic freedom. They are given support, and there is no discrimination between the teachers, the Catholic teachers and the non-Catholic teachers. Parents are very supportive of our Catholic institutions, alumni members, etc. So in spite of our great diversity, Catholic institutions hold a place of pride in this country. Right? And the major challenge today is, one is funding. As Sandra said, we will probably become privatized in the near future. And funding may be a problem because a large section of our students come from the economically disadvantaged sections and marginalized groups. And some of them are unable to pay the minimum fee, tuition fee, and whatever other fees. And so, we cannot run our institutions based on this. We will need support, from congregations and from richer Catholic institutions. May have to, dig into their pockets and help the other institutions. That is going to be one of the major challenges to function as a private Catholic higher education today, because, excuse me, the system in India is, if you have a job, a tenured job, which is in a private aided college, the teacher gets a pension when they retire and benefits. Now that will not be met when colleges become privatized. That will be a major disadvantage. And so we will have to compete with other private institutions to give our teachers a good salary and to draw highly qualified teachers who may have to compromise on the amount of salary that they get. that may be one of the challenges for our Catholic higher education today. Is there any other questions? I see.
There is a global question about Christianity, how Christianity is perceived in India.
Yeah, for us, actually, I think most people perceive us as, people who are good. Let me put it that way, right? We don't have much interference from the larger section of society, except now there are these fringe groups which are highly fanatical, and they are, trying to, they spread the word that we are proselytizing, right? And we are converting. My only point here is that if Christians were proselytizing, India would not have just 2.4% after 200 years of British, 300 years of colonialism, and Jesuits coming to India, right, and St. Thomas coming to India. We should have been 90% Christian if we were converting. So that is the only thing for us. But most people, I think, by and large, the whole country looks towards Christians as, a group of people who are educated, charitable. With much charity, we have much charity in us, and we are able to reach out to the less fortunate. I think Mother Teresa was one of those persons who, lived the life of a true Christian, and she is very much liked in this country, and so are the others. I hope that answers your question of how we are perceived in this country.
There is another question quite different about how fostering collaborations between the institutions, higher education institutions, and the diocese, as you suggest.
Sorry,
fostering collaboration between the institutions and the diocese, as suggested by you.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the encyclical Ex Cordie Ecclesiae, it's also given there that bishops need to, be part of the educational system, and also the dioceses at the local level, because we are part of the universal church. The institution is part of the local church, and maybe some dialogue needs to take place where the church, the bishops and the local dioceses, will, participate in the pastoral ministry in the institutions, and vice versa. Some of our sisters actually participate in the pastoral ministry in the churches, and I think that is one of the things that they can do, have more collaboration between the churches and the institutions. I know from experience in Stella Maris College, some of our sisters teach catechism in the parishes in around the college. So this is one way of where we can do. The other thing is, I think the church also needs to look at and stand by they do stand by the institutions when we have problems with the civil authorities. And I think church takes a stand on that. And so far we are so good in it, but I think we need some more engagement with the bishops and actually the CBCI has got a whole commission on education and culture, right? And Xavier board is part of it. So most of the bishops are aware of CBCI, and they do support the institutions. At the local level, I think there should be some more engagement, and I really don't know how much, but we'll have to look into this and see how we can engage with them.
Okay. Perhaps a last comment and question. Victor Paul wrote, I like the idea about developing leaders. Our institutions have a responsibility to demonstrate our identity and influence our students to become future leaders in the society. How can it be possible in today's socio-political situation in India? Any thoughts?
Let me go back to the question. Idea of developing leaders, I just have a responsibility to demonstrate identity and influence our students to become future leaders in society. How can that in today's socio-political situation in India? I think first and foremost, let's do it at our institutional level. Our own students, I think we need to invest in our students, conduct programs for them, have classes, etc., where we can train them to be future leaders in society. I think at the government level, the NAC, the UGC, etc., expect colleges to train students to take up positions and take up the administrative exams, what we call as the Union Public Service Examinations, so that they can become leaders in the country. And in our own institution, we have a lot of student leaders. Our own students union, we develop the students, the leadership qualities in students, and class reps, union presidents, etc. And we are through training programs, and much of it is done by the deans and keeping the Catholic vision in mind, the vision and mission of the institution. So the socio-political situation in India is, as I said, not too good today, but I think this is not reflected in our colleges. Most of the students who come to us are not in any way discriminated, and they know that we are welcome, and so they do not bring in their political ideas. I personally do not know of any institution where we have these differences between the students on political lines or on socioeconomic lines. And it is, I think, through our programs, both academic and non-academic programs, we can train our students to become better leaders, future leaders in the society. And those who we have to influence them in such a way that they will not become biased once they leave our institution. So our responsibility is huge, and it is a daunting task. But first and foremost, we need to train our faculty members before we train the students. Our teachers need to be trained in such a way that they become leaders in the institution. They take a position of responsibility, and through that they can train the students.
Okay. Perhaps a last question. You can read it in the chat.
Yeah, outside India, get a list of the Catholic universities. Xavier Board of Higher Education has, on its website, has got a list of Catholic institutions who are members. I am trying to get the Catholic CBCI to give us a list of all the Catholic, because many Catholic colleges who have not registered with Xavier Board. And I have been doing this task, but I will still, once I get it done completely, I will pass it on to Jose Manuel, the list of Catholic universities and colleges.
Okay. Jose, if you go on IFCU website, you will find the link to the Xavier board.
It is xavierboard.org.
Yes. And I also remind you that we have a collaborative platform on which each member of IFCU is present. So if you want some specific link, you can find it also on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think that it was the last question. Perhaps I could ask you
yes.
what kind of partnerships outside India you would like to have. Do you have some specific expectations in terms of international partnerships
yes.
with other universities?
Yes, I think this is something that most of our colleges have been looking for, networking with colleges and universities abroad, mainly for faculty exchange programs, some student exchange programs, scholar and residence programs, which will help the faculty members to have a broader vision of what higher education is. Honestly, I have been influenced by some of my programs abroad. For example, I had a visiting professor's thing stint at Bucknell University and Robert Morris University in the US, and that broadened my horizon. It also gave me an insight into the kind of research that is happening there in the field of biology and biotechnology. So this is something that some of our teachers can be, given a hand in, faculty exchange programs,
yes,
as well as student exchange programs for those who, who are able, but the students faculty and students will need financial support. So this would be one of the best things, the student exchange and faculty exchange programs.
Okay.
So
perhaps that in the next future, we could organize a specific webinar on these very specific issues, because I think that many universities could be interested in collaborating with you in this subject.
Thank you.
So in the chat, you will find some last informations which are given by some attendees. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah,
and Ordetta, I think that we can close this session, and I would like to tell you once more a very warm thank you for this so inspiring lecture about the situation of Catholic institutions in India. I wish you all the best for the next future, and for the attendees, you will receive very soon the link to the replay. And as mentioned before, anyway, we also publish the text of each lecture. So you will find it also on the IFCU website very soon. Thank you, Ordetta. Thank you to all the attendees.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you who participated.